Hey, what's up everybody? It's Super Saiyan Majin Slayer here. You can call me Andres, by my nickname Andy as well. Today I want to go ahead and show off some IP Mascarena combos. Because some questions I get asked regarding my deck list whenever I post them regarding the non-Dragoon, non-Fusion Destiny build of the deck is how exactly do I go about establishing a first turn board if I don't really have anything very strong to make outside of an Appaloosa, Redoer, or a Nightmare, as they're not as versatile as something like a Dragoon or maybe a Destroy Phoenix Enforcer. And today I wanted to go ahead and show you guys the extra deck monsters I like to go into featuring the IP Masquerena and how I go about getting a really good setup and where to hit the choke points of certain decks. You can maybe see this as kind of similar to my Beating the Meta series, but I'm mainly just going to go ahead and feature IP Masquerena as I do get quite a bit of questions about this card and how exactly I go about utilizing it. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys some duels regarding certain matchups you can see. Alright, so actually before I go ahead and start showing you guys how I take utilization of IP Masquerena, I think it's better to go ahead and show you guys the typical line of play I like to personally go for when utilizing it. So we start off with Torn Scales Boots. This is my favorite line of play to go for if I really want to go for the IP Masquerena. So let me click to there for a second. And for this version of the deck, the IP Masquerena is technically like the most versatile extra deck monster you go for. Just because like Evil Storm Nightmare, like if you guys seen me play in like MB2's tournaments, like the Evil Storm Nightmare was fairly good against the general meta decks last format, but now we have stuff like Flunderies, and other decks that Evil Storm Nightmare won't really be good against, which is kind of what I've seen people kind of stereotype my deck to be, or my version of the deck to be rather. We also got like Swordsoul and stuff that's just summon out tokens, and they just do a whole bunch of normal summons as well. And then I can't Book of Moon the tokens as well. Then I'm going to go ahead and set a Fog Blade here. Search out Stained Underwear, go ahead and trigger the Torn Scales. Actually, for the Rusty, I think it would have been better to set the Wings instead, because you gotta keep your opponent guessing depending on how many cards you're gonna set. And maybe if they have like Twin Twisters, then you have to pick between the two, and they know this is the Wings. So it doesn't really matter necessarily. I'm gonna use the Boots effect. Switch out Fog Blade for protection. And the reason why I say this is versatile and why I really like the Wings, why I was testing it out in the most recent online tournament that I was in, is because the Wings you can just activate and it'll fall off right away. So say I go up against like something like Altlich or Altergeist where they just go set 5 pass, then end of main what I can do is I can go ahead, use Wings, trigger the or not trigger Torn Skills, but I'm supposed to summon out the Break Sword, then go ahead and trigger the Rusty and the Torn Skills as well. Go ahead and pop one of their cards. So already They had 6 cards, right? And then they just go ahead, I get rid of 1. And then depending on the matchup and like if I can get a read on what deck I'm going up against, like maybe I pop something like a spoofing, maybe I pop something like a conquistador. At that point, I'll just go ahead and go into one of my link monsters, maybe something like access code talker, because the outlet decks rely mostly on popping your cards to go about breaking your board, but if they can't pop the access code talker, and then Golden Lord can only go up to like 3,500 attack points, then it's going to be fairly difficult for them to try to get over it. In decks, I think like Virtual World as well, where it's fairly hard for them to out something that's can't be destroyed by card effects and can only target it, because I know they play stuff like the Vermilion that like pops. You can banish, I think, a card from your graveyard and then pop and target a card on the field to destroy. But I mean, with the IP Mascarena, that protects the Underworld Goddess from that effect, and as well as like something maybe like Virtual World where they go for something like a Zeus. Zeus doesn't target, so they can't really get over it until like their following turn after they establish the Zeus. And that's what I'm saying, where like this is the most versatile approach to like any type of deck. Like if you really like want to go like you don't really know what you're going up against, you don't feel like you could be going up against like a monkey deck, for example, then yeah, let's go ahead and go with this approach. And I'm going to go and show you guys some matchups where I think you can hit them with the IP Masquerena combo. Alright guys, so this here is an example of what I was talking about. So here I'm going to go ahead and show you guys. Remember, it's just for demonstration purposes that my opponent is on Geist, right? And like they open up a bunch of purple cards, and like maybe their only normal summon is like a Maleuseek, for example. Go ahead and normal summon probably the Maleuseek, right? And they're just going to go ahead and try to poke you. But like you don't want to lose a card on field, right? So he's going to go ahead and Pog Blade it. And at the same time, they're probably wondering like, okay, should I or should I not basically just go into the Amirage or Link Karibo, because the Fog Blade is just going to fall off at that point pretty much. And so they're probably what they want to do is just go set 5, pass, or maybe they don't even reveal that it's this is a Maleuseek, right? Maybe they try to end your main to try to bait out any type of interruption you may have. So what you can also do is, this is why I really like wings. Use the wings on the IP Masquerena, and then go ahead and use the wings to go ahead and revive back your Break Sword, then trigger the Rusty and the Torn Scales. Go ahead and pop one of their cards. So you look, say Solemn Judgment, right? But then maybe I want to go ahead and get some more feel as to what they could be on. Well, it's not necessarily you're going to really know what they're on. You have different options here. You could go into a Nightmare Phoenix or a Unicorn as well, based on what you know. I wouldn't recommend going for Access Code Talker, because they can just easily bounce it with something like the Silk. Underworld Goddess can kinda be okay, but it kinda has the same issues where it can just be bounced a little bit easily by the Silk, and then it can also just be hit by Imperms, which they always run 3 of, because Altergeist Multi-Faker plus Imperm is basically pretty nutty when you're going first and they use it on you. And for here, since I didn't see an Altergeist card, I'll just go ahead and go for the another set, spin it back. It was imperm, but maybe they want to let it go through. Who knows, right? These are just examples, right? If it was like something like an imperm, they would probably chain it, right? But this is just for like demonstration purposes. But yeah, so that's the first instance of certain matchups in which you determine what to go for next with your after you go for the break sword pop and then use the IP Mascarena sequentially. Alright guys, and here's the board setup once again, but this time I'll be showing off what to do if you're playing off against Tri-Brigade. I'm not really sure when to hit the bird version of the Tri-Brigade deck just because I've been a little bit busy with school. Mainly I think I played against a pure build, a pure bird build. I haven't really seen too much of like the Tri-Brigade bird version. I think I built against it once or twice on my last live stream, but let's go ahead and say this is more of like the standard rescue cat like maybe Melfi if you're fancy. Type of version of the deck. But yeah, so this is what I'm talking about, where they go ahead, and I have the same end board as last time, which I was discussing, 1 fog blade plus 1 wings. You keep the wings because just in case if they don't allow your fog blade to fall off of your monster, that you have something to trigger a break sword pop in your graveyard to get back the Torn Scales. Then right, they're going to want to try to go ahead and banish 2 monsters from the graveyard to try to go for the Farragut, in which case you can just go ahead and fog blade it. And then, oops, forgot to add a say they try to like extend something like a Cuirass, for example. It feels weird using a deck that I've never used before. Right, so they typically have 2 summons that they use to get their engine going. And then in which case, since you don't have another fog blade, you go ahead and use the wings on the Rusty. Then go ahead and trigger the break sword, or not trigger break sword, but trigger wings, or summon out the break sword, and go ahead and then bring back the Torn Skills as well. Now, let's say for example, you're trying to play around a possible top, like a hard open revolt, right? You know, I'd be a little bit weary about that as well. So what I would do here is I wouldn't go for the Appaloosa just because they can chain black the Shureg. What I would do actually instead is to go for the Underworld Goddess actually, because whoops, this Torn Scale should actually be banished. And then the tour guide comes from the Scarm Search as well. Just in a rush to get this demonstration's purpose going, but I would personally link off the kit. No, actually I wouldn't link off the kit. I'd probably link off the I'd link off the Cuirass, so then that way, or yeah, I would have to link off the Cuirass actually. No, not the Cuirass, the kit, because I'm popping it with the break sword actually. Sorry, I'm doing this a little bit early for me because I have to take a test soon. And then the reason why you go for Underworld Goddess is because you play around a possible hard open revolt now that you got all their monsters into the graveyard and that are banished, since the revolt can special summon from both graveyard and the banished pile. In which case you can just go ahead and negate it with the Underworld Goddess, and then you open up yourself to opportunities to go ahead and reset your graveyard and get the Torn Scales back in rotation, because as of right now, you did lose the Torn Scales, but you do have methods of getting your engine back and rolling, such as with the tour guide bringing out Seer, which when it hits the graveyard brings out Cherubini, so you can start dumping monsters, as well as the Rusty Bardiche to go ahead and dump a Fan Knight monster instead of card as well. So this is an approach I like to do if I find myself making an IP Masquerena against the Tri-Brigade deck. Even if they open something like a Lightning Storms or they Twin Twisters my back row, I can just go ahead and just pop their first normal summon, right? And then I can just go ahead and when they try to extend with the Caress, I can just go ahead and Underworld Goddess that monster on summon. So really a Lightning Storm doesn't hurt this this approach either very much. Alright guys, and here's like a more meta relevant approach with the Burst of Destiny being recently released last week. So in here we're playing against the Hero Swordsoul deck. I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the same setup, how to approach this. Just they reveal, or they normal summon Moi, then reveal the Wangyun, the one you go ahead and do. Go ahead and Fogblade it so it can't summon out a token. What they probably want to do next is that they're going to want to go ahead, discard. It can be really any discard, but remember this is just demonstration purposes. And then since you don't have another Fogblade, unfortunately, what you're going to have to resort to is that you're going to have to use the wings on your Rusty. And go ahead and do the Break Sword pop, trigger out Torn Scales. Then just when you think you got everything all set in stone, actually the better play would be to use it on the IP Mascarena, in my opinion. Yeah, use it on the IP Mascarena instead, because what's going to happen is they might have a Fusion Destiny. Then what you're going to want to do here is that, depending, because you can play around the Phoenix Enforcer at this point, right? Because it depends on if they want to shotgun the Phoenix Enforcer, which they probably won't if they're good, because they just know that will trigger IP Masquerena at this point. But once you get priority back, maybe they had left in their hand a sudden shift, right? After they played through all your negations. Going to draw for turn, draw into Tour Guide, and what I would immediately do, in my personal opinion, is that I would just go straight into a an Underworld Goddess from here. More than likely, though, you'll have another body in case they try to go Phoenix Enforcer pop. But they know you have Tour Guide in hand from when you searched out the Tour Guide with the Scarm during your end phase when you started off the turn. So it just really depends on the player. But I would just go ahead and shotgun this immediately, because it'll stop their I keep calling this sudden shift because I was watching a bunch of videos before it got released. where they called it Sun Shift, now it's actually called Blackout. And then this will be protected since the IP Masquerena allows it to not be destroyed by opponents' card effects. And then at this point, right, you can just go ahead and normal summon Altergeist, go ahead and bring out Seer, then you can go ahead and get out your Cherubini. Like, even if they do shotgun this, like I said, you always have some kind of follow-up with the tour guide, the Cherubini, that can protect itself from card effects as well. So this is like approach I found out while playing on Rated the other day. But yeah, so those are some IP Masquerena lines of play you guys can go for depending on the matchup you're going up against. Before, I used to really only see this as like a generic out to contact C, but after playing a little bit more on Rated and looking at how to beat different kinds of matchups, I found out the versatility IP Masquerena has and what it can provide me by not having to deal with the bricks like Fusion Destiny or the Dragoon bricks as well. So I hope these lines of play helped you guys out. If it did, please leave a like, share it with your friends, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace.